In the vast emptiness of space, aboard a derelict research vessel drifting near the edge of the Andromeda sector, he wasn't expecting to find anyone, let alone her. A young alien girl alone, shivering, eyes wide with fear and curiosity, appeared from the shadows. With nothing but a single sleeping bag to offer, he hesitated. Was this a gesture of kindness, or a dangerous mistake? What happened next would defy everything he knew about trust, survival, and the unpredictable nature of life beyond Earth. She did something no one could have predicted, and it changed everything. The hum of the deep space vessel Odyssey was a familiar comfort to Ethan. Every vibration, every rhythmic pulse of the engines was a reminder that, despite the endless void outside, he was not truly alone. Or at least, he hadn't been until now. The Odyssey was on a routine survey mission, charting sectors far beyond the established human frontier. Their sensors had recently detected an anomaly, a faint signal that flickered on and off like a dying star. Most of the crew dismissed it as cosmic interference, debris caught in the magnetic fields, but Ethan's curiosity wouldn't let it go. Something about that signal felt deliberate. Ethan moved through the narrow corridors of the ship, his boots making soft thuds against the metallic floor. The ship was quiet. Most of the crew were in cryo-rest, leaving only the skeleton watch to maintain orbit and systems. He carried a small scanner in one hand, its screen glowing faintly, mapping energy fluctuations in the sector. The signal led him to the aft storage module, a part of the ship rarely accessed except for maintenance. As he approached, the scanner beeped urgently. The signal was getting stronger, its pattern erratic but unmistakable. Something or someone was alive. When he opened the reinforced door, he found her. She crouched in the corner, huddled beneath a thin, translucent membrane that shimmered faintly under the ship's lights. At first, he thought she was some kind of alien drone or escape pod. Her shape was small, humanoid, but impossibly delicate. Her limbs were thin, her head slightly elongated, and her large, luminescent eyes reflected a mixture of fear and curiosity. Her skin seemed almost translucent, faint traces of internal patterns glowing softly. Ethan froze. This wasn't a creature designed to harm. They looked fragile, vulnerable. He lowered his scanner, raising both hands to show he meant no threat. "Hey, I'm not going to hurt you." His voice sounded strange even to him, reverberating against the metal walls. The creature flinched, shrinking further into her makeshift shelter. She tilted her head, staring at him with wide, unblinking eyes. There was intelligence there, far beyond instinct. But she didn't speak. Not in any language he recognized. Ethan crouched a few meters away, careful not to make sudden movements. He scanned the module quietly, noting the sparse damage, small fissures in the wall, a trail of what looked like moisture from a recent leak. Clearly, she had been stranded here for some time. He imagined the isolation, the cold, the fear. A shiver ran down his spine. He pulled a thermal blanket from his pack, then stopped, thinking. It was bulky, meant for human size. But then he remembered his sleeping bag. Lightweight, insulated, and portable. It wasn't much, but maybe it could help. Slowly, deliberately, he unrolled the sleeping bag a few meters from him, letting it lie open on the floor. Then he spoke softly. "It's warm. You can share it if you want." The alien girl's large eyes flickered. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, surprisingly, she approached, not cautiously, but with a strange, fluid grace. She examined the sleeping bag, touching the fabric with tiny, almost translucent fingers. Ethan held his breath. And then, she did something he never could have expected. She stepped fully into the sleeping bag and folded herself into it with astonishing precision. Her small frame disappeared almost entirely under the human-sized fabric. But it wasn't just that she accepted his offer. She did it in a way that seemed intimate, like a ritual of trust. She looked up at him briefly, a shimmer of what could only be interpreted as gratitude, or something deeper, crossing her face. Ethan's chest tightened. He had faced dangers across multiple expeditions, but this was different. It wasn't a fight or a crisis. It was the raw, fragile connection between two beings from entirely different worlds. A bridge built not from shared language or culture, but from empathy. He knelt down, careful not to intrude further. "You're okay here?" he asked. The words felt inadequate, but somehow necessary. She tilted her head again, and for the first time, a soft sound emerged from her throat. It wasn't human speech, not really. It was a melody of tones, almost musical in nature. Ethan's translator, struggling to process it, could only make out fragments. Trust, safe, warmth. His lips curved in a small, cautious smile. "Right. You're safe." For the next hour, Ethan simply stayed nearby, observing. The alien girl, Lyra, he silently decided to call her, didn't speak further, but her eyes followed him as he moved. Every adjustment of her position within the sleeping bag seemed deliberate, careful. She was conserving energy, or perhaps simply learning about him, about this strange human who had offered warmth without hesitation. The isolation of the module was palpable. Lights flickered occasionally, and the ship's engines thrummed softly, a reminder of the vast emptiness outside. Ethan felt an unexpected pang of loneliness. Here he was, alone with a being he could barely understand, yet he felt an unspoken kinship. Perhaps the universe wasn't entirely indifferent. Perhaps there were still moments worth fighting for. He rummaged through his pack, producing a small bottle of water and a nutrient gel. Tentatively, he set them near the edge of the sleeping bag. Lyra's eyes followed, her luminous pupils widening. She didn't take the items immediately, she examined them, turning them over in her delicate hands, but eventually she accepted, consuming them with an almost reverent care. Ethan nodded, relieved. It was a small victory, but in that silence, it meant everything. Hours passed. Lyra seemed to relax, though she never fully let go of her cautious posture. Ethan, meanwhile, felt a strange energy growing in the shared quiet. For all the dangers beyond the hull of the Odyssey, this small act of compassion, offering warmth to a stranded creature, had created something extraordinary. He realized that the universe might be vast and indifferent, but empathy could still ripple across worlds. Just as he allowed himself a tentative sigh, the ship jolted. A warning klaxon blared through the corridors, red lights flashing. Ethan grabbed the nearest console, checking the readouts. The anomaly, the signal they had tracked, had intensified dramatically. Energy spikes. Movement. Something was approaching, something large. Lyra stiffened within the sleeping bag, her small frame almost quivering. And then she did something completely unexpected. She extended a single, glowing hand towards Ethan, a gesture that seemed to say, "We face this together." Ethan's heart pounded. He had anticipated rescuing her, helping her, guiding her, but he had never expected her to actively reach out, to trust him in the midst of a threat. In that moment, he realized that this was no longer just about a sleeping bag or temporary safety. Something fundamental was unfolding. Something that neither human nor alien could have predicted. The sensors continued to beep, the ship trembling as the source of the anomaly drew closer. Ethan glanced down at her, at the fragile being who had accepted his warmth without hesitation, and knew, whatever came next, they were bound together now. And as the door to the storage module shuddered under the pressure of an approaching force, Ethan's mind raced, trying to calculate their chances. But deep down, he knew that this was just the beginning. The universe was full of danger, yes. But it was also full of moments like this, moments that reminded him, vividly, that humans had something unique to offer. Something that no alien technology or intelligence could replicate. Compassion, courage, empathy. He took a deep breath, tightened his grip on the console, and whispered, "Let's see what you're made of together." And with that, the Odyssey and its unexpected passenger faced the unknown. The hum of the Odyssey was now punctuated by a tension it had never carried before. Red warning lights cast harsh shadows across the storage module, bouncing off the metallic walls in sharp angles. Ethan's pulse raced as he checked the sensor readouts repeatedly. Whatever had caused the energy spike, the anomaly, was not stationary. It was moving, and it was moving fast. Lyra, curled in the sleeping bag, pressed closer to him. He could feel the subtle warmth of her fragile body through the synthetic fabric. She didn't speak, but her large eyes, glowing softly, reflected the incoming danger. Her extended hand from the previous moment remained close to his, almost like a silent plea for reassurance. Ethan could not help but feel an odd mixture of responsibility and awe. This being, who was entirely alien in form, had entrusted her safety to him. The Odyssey's systems beeped again, this time with a more urgent tone. The anomaly had intensified to a level that suggested an external entity of considerable mass and energy. Ethan's fingers danced across the console, running diagnostic protocols and attempting to establish the origin of the signal. Every display on the monitor painted a picture of movement, something alive, something intelligent. He had faced dangerous situations before, micrometeoroid storms, rogue AI malfunctions, even encounters with hostile wildlife on colonized moons. But this was different. This was not a predictable pattern of danger. It was intelligent, aware, and somehow focused on them. Lyra shifted slightly in the sleeping bag, making a low, harmonic sound. Ethan leaned closer. The translator he had brought along, a standard-issue human device, struggled to interpret the tonal fluctuations. Words formed intermittently. Not harm, wait. Ethan's brow furrowed. The alien girl was trying to communicate, and the words, as best as the translator could interpret, suggested she understood the danger. More than that, she was trying to convey that they shouldn't panic, not yet. He nodded, more to himself than to her. All right. We stay calm. We figure this out. His own voice sounded steadier than he felt. He glanced at the sleeping bag. Lyra's small form had begun to relax, tentatively, her trust in him evident in every micro-movement. The sheer magnitude of that trust hit him like a wave. He had always thought of himself as a capable human, resourceful, courageous, but here was a creature from a completely alien world, relying on his judgment, his protection. And somehow, in that quiet module on the edge of the galaxy, he felt a surge of human pride. Not arrogance, but the quiet, defiant pride of a species capable of empathy, of bridging the gap between worlds. The sensors flared again. Ethan's hands moved faster now, analyzing the energy patterns, trying to determine a defensive course. Whatever was approaching was not just large, it was intelligent, possibly aware of them. The implications were staggering. An intelligent entity, capable of traversing the void undetected until now, and it was heading straight for the Odyssey. Lyra made another sound, softer this time, almost a question. Ethan interpreted it as, strategy? He took a deep breath. We need to prepare, he said. Whatever it is, we need to understand it first. He pulled a small tablet from his pack and began sketching energy vectors and potential movement patterns. Lyra watched, tilting her head as though following his logic. Her eyes glimmered faintly, shifting hues in response to her analysis. Ethan realized that she might be thinking in a form of visual language, mapping patterns in her mind as he mapped them on the screen. Minutes stretched. Each beep, each flicker of red lights, felt elongated, like time itself had slowed. Then the Odyssey shook violently. Something had struck the ship. Not a collision, but an energy pulse, a wave that coursed through the hull, rattling panels and forcing Ethan to steady himself against the console. Lyra shrieked, not in panic, but in alarm. The sound was piercing, harmonic, yet full of intent. Her hand shot out from the sleeping bag, gripping his forearm. The translator picked up fragments of meaning. React, defensive together. Ethan's heart pounded. He had no formal training in alien combat, but he had survival instincts honed over years of space travel. He scanned the module for anything that could serve as a defensive measure. There were emergency supplies, thermal flares, pressure pods, and a small plasma cutter used for repairs. Not weapons, but tools. He grabbed the plasma cutter and waved it cautiously in front of him, hoping the glow and hum might intimidate the unknown entity. Lyra, sensing the intention, made a soft, melodic sound that seemed like agreement. Then, in a movement both shocking and graceful, she slid partially out of the sleeping bag and crouched beside him, her body glowing faintly. Ethan's eyes widened. The glow wasn't just illumination, it was energy. She was generating some form of bioelectric field, subtle but perceptible, that seemed to stabilize the module's energy flux. He realized then that she wasn't just fragile, she was powerful, capable of influencing energy around her. And yet, she hadn't used it until now. She had chosen to trust him, to share in the risk. The Odyssey trembled again, this time with more force. Lights flickered, and the bulkhead groaned under pressure. Ethan could hear the soft creaking of metal fatigue. The anomaly was no longer subtle. It was close. He turned to Lyra. We need to move. To the bridge. Now. Her eyes flickered, then she made a sharp gesture toward the door. Ethan understood. Together, they moved through the corridors, his hand on the console, hers emitting faint pulses that seemed to guide them. The juxtaposition of human determination and alien intuition was astonishing. He felt as though they were a single unit, two beings bound by a fragile but growing trust. As they approached the bridge, another shockwave hit the ship. The force sent Ethan stumbling, but Lyra's glowing hand reached out instinctively, stabilizing him. For a moment, he felt a strange sensation, a connection, not just physical, but something deeper, almost psychic. He realized that the human-alien interaction was more than empathy. It was synergy. Her presence amplified his own senses, made his instincts sharper. When they finally reached the bridge, the viewports revealed the source of the anomaly. A massive, shadowy structure drifted in space, a network of interlocking spires, dark energy pulsating along its surfaces. It wasn't a ship in any traditional sense. It was alive, or at least semi-sentient, responding to their presence. The energy readings from Lyra and the entity were reacting, almost like a resonance. Ethan's mind raced. They were dealing with something unprecedented, a massive, intelligent construct, and Lyra was somehow connected to it, or at least sensitive to its energy. He realized that she wasn't just a stranded creature. She was part of a greater system, and whatever had strayed into the human sector was now aware of them. Lyra floated forward slightly, her glow intensifying. She made another harmonic sound, which the translator barely interpreted. Do not fight, communicate, understand. Ethan's jaw tightened. There wasn't time for delicate diplomacy, but he understood the principle. This wasn't about combat, it was about connection. He had seen humans survive by adapting, by understanding the unknown, not just by brute force. And now, alongside Lyra, he had a chance to do something remarkable, to bridge not just worlds, but forms of consciousness. He nodded. All right, let's try to communicate. Lyra's glow pulsed in rhythm with the console. Ethan hesitated, then extended his hand toward her. The plasma cutter hummed faintly, but it was a gesture of intention, not threat. Her hand met his, and the bridge was bathed in a radiant, synchronized glow. Then, the shadowy structure pulsed in response. The hum of the Odyssey seemed to align with it. Ethan realized they were not alone, but they were being acknowledged. And for the first time in the vastness of space, humanity's uniqueness, the capacity for empathy, for understanding, for reaching across unimaginable boundaries, became their greatest weapon. The entity lingered at the edge of the viewport, massive, unknowable, yet somehow attentive. And Ethan, with Lyra beside him, understood something profound. Survival wasn't just about strength or firepower. It was about connection, trust, courage. And in that shared moment, the line between human and alien blurred, revealing something truly extraordinary. The Odyssey trembled again as the massive shadowy entity hovered in the void outside the viewport. Its spires, dark and angular, pulsated with energy that seemed almost alive, radiating a low, resonant hum that vibrated through the hull. Ethan's heart pounded with a mix of awe and fear. He had never seen anything like it. Every instinct screamed danger, yet something about Lyra's calm presence suggested otherwise. She hovered closer to him, her glow steady and warm, a soft counterpoint to the ominous pulse of the structure. Ethan realized that the intensity of her bioluminescence seemed to resonate with the energy waves emanating from the entity, almost like a musical instrument finding harmony with an unfamiliar chord. Lyra made a soft melodic sound, her eyes flickering through shifting shades of blue and green. The translator device picked up fragments. Listen, understand, cautious. Ethan exhaled slowly. He had no formal protocol for first contact, with a living structure that could probably crush the Odyssey with a flick of its appendages. Yet, somehow, he knew the first step wasn't aggression. It was awareness, connection. He moved to the communication console and activated the universal translator protocols, broadcasting a simple sequence, energy pulses in rhythmic patterns. He mimicked what Lyra had done instinctively, creating a soft, harmonic resonance. To his astonishment, the entity's pulses began to fluctuate in response, subtle at first, then more deliberate. Lyra's glow intensified, synchronizing perfectly with the response. Ethan could feel a wave of energy passing through him, a strange tingling sensation, almost like static electricity, but alive and intelligent. He realized the entity wasn't just aware, they were engaging. The bridge fell into a tense silence, broken only by the hum of the entity and Lyra's harmonic tones. Ethan's mind raced, analyzing patterns, trying to find any logic in the pulse fluctuations. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The entity's signals were repetitive, deliberate, almost like a language built of energy itself. He spoke softly, more to Lyra than to himself. It's responding. It's trying to communicate. I think it understands you. Lyra tilted her head and emitted a sharp harmonic trill. The translator interpreted. They feel safe with you. Ethan's breath caught. Despite being surrounded by incomprehensible alien energy, the entity had somehow registered trust, not just in Lyra, but in him, in humanity. That simple recognition sparked something profound in him, hope. Suddenly, the Odyssey shook violently. The energy pulses outside escalated, sending a surge through the ship's power conduits. Lights flickered, consoles sparked, and alarms screamed warnings of stress on the hull. Ethan grabbed the console to steady himself, and Lyra's hand shot out to stabilize him again. They're testing us, Ethan muttered. Or probing. Lyra emitted a low, vibrating hum. She floated forward, raising her hands toward the viewport. Waves of glowing energy extended from her fingertips, interacting with the pulses of the entity. Ethan watched, captivated and terrified. The entity's responses became smoother, less chaotic, almost like it was calibrating itself to her energy. Then came a sudden, astonishing moment. The viewport shimmered, not with a reflection or distortion, but as if a doorway had formed in the vacuum itself. Ethan could see a lattice of dark energy folding in on itself, creating a frame-like shape. Inside, faint, almost ethereal forms moved, shapes that defied conventional physics, shifting in and out of perception. Lyra gasped, a soft, melodic sound of wonder, and Ethan could sense her exhilaration. "It's letting us see," she whispered, in her alien phrasing, her words trembling with excitement. The entity, massive and unknowable, was not aggressive. It was cautious, curious, and somehow inviting. Ethan felt the weight of human history in that moment, the endless struggle for understanding, for survival, for connection. And here, on the edge of the galaxy, he was witnessing humanity's essence manifest through simple courage and empathy. Ethan knew he had to respond. He tapped into the Odyssey's external scanners, attempting to map the anomaly. Every reading was unlike anything in the database. Non-Euclidean geometry, fluctuating energy fields, structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Yet, when he projected simple harmonic pulses, mimicking Lyra, the entity responded predictably, almost rhythmically. "Lyra," he said, leaning close, "we can communicate with it. We just need to feel the rhythm. Match it." Lyra's eyes glimmered brighter, and she extended her hands. Ethan followed, placing his palms near hers, letting her energy flow through him. The bridge filled with a shimmering light, a soft hum that seemed to resonate with the deepest parts of his consciousness. The entity's massive form shimmered in response, its pulses synchronized with theirs. For several minutes, time itself seemed to dilate. Ethan felt as though he were simultaneously everywhere on the ship, and yet nowhere, an observer of patterns, rhythms, and energy flows. He realized that this entity, unlike any creature he had encountered, communicated not through words or gestures, but through resonance. And humans, through Lyra, were capable of perceiving and engaging with that resonance. Then came the first tangible message. The energy pulses coalesced into a form that Ethan could interpret through the translator. Seek, understanding, danger, near. Ethan's stomach dropped. Danger? After all this effort, there was still a threat. He glanced at Lyra, whose glow dimmed slightly, indicating concern. She made another harmonic trill. "We together, safe." The message was clear. The entity was warning them, but it also acknowledged that they were allies. Unexpected, but now recognized. Ethan's mind raced. What kind of danger could exist that even this massive, intelligent structure feared? And why had it chosen this moment to make contact? Before he could dwell on it, another surge hit the ship. Panels shook violently, and the lights flickered red. Ethan grabbed the console for stability as alarms blared. The entity pulsed sharply, almost like a warning flare, and the harmonic resonance shifted into a tense, staccato rhythm. Lyra's glow pulsed in response, but with an edge of urgency. She grasped Ethan's arm tightly, her translucent fingers radiating warmth. Prepare, must leave, follow. Ethan's mind clicked into action. The Odyssey's thrusters were partially operational, but the energy surge outside was too intense to navigate safely through conventional flight. They needed guidance, precise, informed navigation. And the entity, in its massive, incomprehensible intelligence, was the only one capable of providing it. He looked at Lyra. "You can guide us." "I'll follow." Her eyes widened, and she made a short, sharp trill, almost a laugh. Then she extended her hands toward the viewport. Waves of energy radiated from her body, reaching out to the entity. The dark, pulsating structure shimmered, and a pathway of energy formed, outlining a safe trajectory through the turbulent field outside. Ethan felt a surge of exhilaration. Human intuition, combined with Lyra's alien resonance, had produced a solution, proof that collaboration, trust, and empathy could achieve the impossible. He keyed in the trajectory, setting the Odyssey to follow the path. The ship lurched as thrusters engaged. Outside, the void shimmered with the energy of the entity, guiding them safely through the chaotic field. Ethan's hands flew over the controls, adjusting, compensating, trusting Lyra's guidance. Every movement was synchronized, a dance between human skill and alien intuition. Minutes passed, tense and surreal. The alarm slowly ceased as the Odyssey cleared the worst of the turbulence. The entity's form remained outside the viewport, immense and silent now, as if watching, assessing. Lyra's glow dimmed to a soft, calming blue, her body trembling with relief and exhaustion. Ethan exhaled, leaning back in his seat. For the first time in hours, he allowed himself a small smile. They had survived the first real encounter. Not through brute force, not through weapons, but through understanding, trust, and the quiet, relentless courage that defined humanity. Lyra floated closer, curling back into the sleeping bag. Ethan draped a blanket over her, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders once more. But it was no longer fear. It was resolve. They had faced the unknown, and together they had survived. Yet Ethan knew, deep in his bones, that this was only the beginning. The entity's warning, danger near, lingered in his mind. The vastness of space held more than isolation and silence. It held threats beyond comprehension, and he and Lyra were now part of a story far larger than themselves. In that quiet, fragile moment, as the Odyssey drifted through the calm of space, Ethan felt a surge of something ancient, something quintessentially human, hope. And alongside it, a recognition of a profound truth. In the endless darkness of the universe, humanity's greatest strength was not in its technology, its weapons, or its numbers. It was in its capacity to connect, to empathize, and to reach out into the unknown, unafraid. And so the first chapter of their true journey began, not with conflict but with connection. Not with weapons but with trust. The entity hovered outside, massive, incomprehensible, yet now undeniably aware of them. And for the first time, Ethan understood something fundamental. Humanity was special. In a universe of unimaginable scale, the simple courage to understand and the will to connect could turn the tide of survival itself. And Lyra, curled beside him, was a living testament to that truth. The calm that had settled over the Odyssey was deceptive. Ethan stared out of the viewport, eyes tracing the faint, geometric pulses of the massive entity that had guided them safely through the turbulent energy field. Its presence was reassuring, yet the warning it had transmitted, danger near, hung in the back of his mind like a dark cloud. Lyra floated beside him, her glowing form soft and comforting against the cold, metallic interior of the bridge. She hummed a gentle tone, as if sensing Ethan's tension. Her hands traced the air in delicate arcs, causing faint ripples of bioluminescence to cascade across the bridge consoles. Ethan had learned to read these subtle signals. Her glow brightened when she felt danger, softened when she felt calm, and sometimes pulsed with rapid urgency when she perceived something incomprehensible. "Something's coming," Ethan murmured, his voice low. "Something bigger than what we've seen." Lyra's glow shifted to a pulsating amber. The translator picked up her trill. "Not enemy, but threat, very near approach with caution." Ethan nodded. The distinction was important. Whatever was approaching wasn't necessarily sentient in the way the entity was, but it was dangerous. He turned to the Odyssey's console, tapping commands into the navigation system. The ship's sensors were already picking up anomalous readings, a massive energy signature rapidly approaching their coordinates. It wasn't moving like a conventional spacecraft. It had no discernible propulsion, no predictable trajectory. Yet the readings indicated mass, energy, and potential destruction on a scale Ethan had never encountered. Lyra floated closer to the viewport, her eyes, bright and iridescent, focused on the incoming anomaly. Her melodic trill was sharp, almost urgent. "Must shield, must hide, follow me." Ethan's pulse quickened. "Hide? Where?" She gestured toward the dark expanse beyond the entity, toward the folds of energy that the entity had previously guided them through. "Safe there for now." Without waiting for further clarification, Ethan engaged the Odyssey's thrusters and followed Lyra's guidance. The ship moved into a cavernous region of the energy lattice, a zone where reality itself seemed to bend and shimmer. Spatial readings became unreliable, gravity fluctuated slightly, and the stars outside stretched into faint, ghostly trails. But within this distorted corridor, the energy readings of the approaching threat decreased, as if the lattice itself was absorbing or deflecting the incoming force. Once they were within the relative safety of the lattice, Ethan allowed himself a moment to breathe. "That was insane," he admitted. "How do you even know this is safe?" Lyra's glow softened, her form radiating a calm blue as she floated toward him. She placed her hand gently on his shoulder. The translator interpreted her trill. "Feel the energy it guides, trust." He swallowed hard, realizing the truth. Lyra had an intrinsic connection to the energies around them, a resonance humans could never fully master. But with her guidance, they could navigate dangers that would otherwise be impossible to comprehend. The warning came too late. A massive surge of energy erupted just outside the lattice, shaking the Odyssey violently. The ship groaned under the strain, alarms blaring as the hull shuddered. Ethan gritted his teeth, stabilizing the controls, while Lyra's glow flared in response, sending pulses outward as if to counteract the force. On the viewport, he caught a glimpse of it, an enormous, shadowy construct, almost alive in its malevolent design. Its surface shimmered with dark energy, constantly shifting, as if it were both solid and liquid simultaneously. Unlike the entity that had guided them, this force radiated hostility. Its approach was inexorable, like a predator hunting prey. Ethan's mind raced. They couldn't outrun it. They couldn't fight it with conventional weaponry. The only chance they had was to rely on the lattice and Lyra's unique connection to the energy around them. Lyra's eyes met his, her gaze intense. The translator picked up her trill. "We must merge, energy shield, only way." Ethan's heart pounded. "Merge?" he asked. "You mean together?" She nodded, her glow brightening. "Together strong human, plus me plus ship, must survive." He realized what she meant. They would have to synchronize completely, his human instinct, the ship's systems, and her alien energy, to create a protective barrier capable of withstanding the approaching entity. The concept was terrifying, but there was no alternative. Ethan took a deep breath and moved to the console. He extended his hands, mirroring Lyra's gestures. Her glow intensified, sending a cascade of bioluminescent energy through the bridge, through him, into the ship's systems. Ethan felt the hum of energy coursing around him, not just electrical but living, responsive, alive. The Odyssey seemed to respond. Its thrusters, shields, and energy conduits hummed in synchrony with Lyra's resonance and Ethan's deliberate commands. The harmonic pattern they produced created a translucent bubble of shimmering light around the ship, a shield powered not by technology alone, but by human-alien cooperation. Outside, the shadow approached faster, its surface rippling violently, as if sensing the defensive field forming around the Odyssey. Energy arcs leapt from the anomaly, striking the protective bubble. The shield vibrated, resonated, and flexed under the pressure, but held. Ethan's knuckles whitened as he maintained the rhythm, following Lyra's guidance. For long minutes, they held, locked in a tense, almost ritualistic battle of energy and will. The shadow surged again, more aggressively this time, and Ethan felt a deep, resonating vibration in his chest. Lyra's energy flared brightly, nearly blinding, as if she were pouring every ounce of her being into sustaining the shield. Then came the unexpected. The shadow pulsed violently, and Ethan realized it was not merely attacking. It was testing, probing, analyzing. Its energy seemed intelligent, adaptive, almost as if it were learning from every strike against the shield. Every instinct screamed that they were not just surviving. They were in a dialogue of force, of resilience, of understanding through energy alone. Ethan shouted over the alarms. "We can't keep this up forever. It's adapting too quickly." Lyra's glow shifted, almost imperceptibly, and she reached out, touching his hand. The translator interpreted. "Focus, feel, respond together." Ethan concentrated. He synchronized his heartbeat with her pulses, with the energy fluctuations of the ship, and with the very rhythm of the lattice around them. Slowly, the shield began to change, not just resisting, but channeling the energy outward in controlled bursts. The shadow surged against the redirected force, its movements growing erratic. The anomaly hesitated, recoiling slightly. Ethan's chest tightened with realization. They were not just defending, they were communicating power back to it, asserting presence, claiming space. Humanity was not helpless. They were alive. They were relevant. The shadow pulsed one last time, a massive, jagged wave of energy, before retreating, dissolving into the void with a violent shudder. The Odyssey rocked gently as the lattice's normal fluctuations resumed, the calm returning to the bridge. Ethan slumped in his chair, sweat glistening on his brow. Lyra floated beside him, exhausted but glowing softly, her hand still resting on his arm. The translator interpreted her trill. "We survived together, trust." Ethan exhaled deeply. "Together," he repeated, a smile breaking through the tension. "We actually did it." But even in victory, he knew this was only a temporary reprieve. The universe was vast, and forces far beyond human comprehension were out there, intelligent, indifferent, and sometimes hostile. And yet, in that moment, he felt something profound. Humans with courage, empathy, and the will to understand could face even the incomprehensible. He glanced at Lyra. Her glow was fading into a calm, reassuring blue, but her eyes sparkled with something he couldn't quite name. Gratitude? Relief? Something deeper, something almost human. He realized that the bond they had forged through danger, trust, and shared survival was beyond simple understanding. Ethan knew that the journey ahead would be dangerous. The Shadow's approach was a warning, not a defeat. But he also knew this: humans were special. Not because of weapons or technology, but because of courage, creativity, and the capacity to connect across impossible boundaries. And Lyra, the alien girl who had trusted him enough to merge her energy with his own, was living proof of that truth. As the Odyssey drifted silently through the lattice, Ethan allowed himself a rare moment of hope. The universe was dangerous, yes. Vast, terrifying, incomprehensible. But together, humans, aliens, and the unexpected allies they encountered along the way, they could survive. They could endure. They could rise. And rise they would. The Odyssey drifted through the lattice, silent now except for the low hum of its energy core and the occasional ripple from Lyra's bioluminescent glow. Ethan's hands rested on the console, his mind replaying the encounter with the shadow entity. It had tested them, yes, but it had also retreated. Why? What had they communicated to it? And more importantly, what came next? Lyra floated beside him, her body radiating a soft blue light. She was calm, almost serene, but Ethan could feel the tension in the air, the lingering vibrations of a force they had only just survived. The translator interpreted her soft trill. "We have survived, but more comes must prepare, humans stronger than they know." Ethan nodded. He was beginning to understand the truth that the alien girl had been trying to teach him from the start. The universe was vast and indifferent, but humans had something unique. Not raw power, not technology, not speed, but courage, empathy, ingenuity, the ability to act even when outcomes were uncertain, to connect across species, across worlds. "Do you think it's gone for good?" he asked cautiously. Lyra's eyes glimmered. "Never gone, only waiting, sensing, testing, humans interesting." Ethan shivered. Interesting. That word carried weight. It was not a threat, not yet. But it meant that humanity had drawn attention, and attention in the cosmos was dangerous. The silence was broken by the Odyssey's communications panel. A faint signal, faint but deliberate, appeared on their screens. Coordinates, etched in a language Ethan didn't recognize, but Lyra immediately understood. She extended her hand toward the interface, her fingers tracing arcs of energy and patterns that caused the consoles to shimmer and respond. "Follow answers lie, they're not safe, but truth." Ethan swallowed hard. There was no hesitation in her voice. Whatever lay ahead was dangerous, but it also promised understanding. They couldn't ignore it. Within hours, the ship approached a massive, ring-like structure suspended in the void. Unlike anything Ethan had ever seen, it was both alien and strangely organic, composed of flowing lines of energy intertwined with crystalline segments that refracted starlight into a kaleidoscope of color. The shadow entity was nowhere in sight, but the structure emanated a similar energy signature, as if it were connected to the force they had just survived. Lyra's glow brightened as she approached the viewport. The origin, where it begins, answers. Ethan felt a chill. He realized that this was no longer just about survival. It was about understanding. Humanity, he realized, had been thrust into the heart of something far larger than himself, far larger than any human civilization could have anticipated. And yet, he felt a surge of determination. The Odyssey carefully maneuvered into a docking sequence, the ship's energy shields humming in harmony with Lyra's resonance. As they passed through the entryway, the environment inside was breathtaking. Energy flowed like liquid, cascading across vast chambers that defied conventional geometry. The walls pulsed with rhythmic light, almost as if they were alive, breathing in time with something beyond human comprehension. Ethan and Lyra floated side by side, absorbing the grandeur of the place. And then they saw it, a central core, massive and radiant, surrounded by swirling currents of energy that seemed to pulse with intelligence. This was the heart of the lattice, the origin point of the forces that had both guided and threatened them. As they approached, the core responded. Energy rippled outward, enveloping the Odyssey and Lyra in a cocoon of light. Ethan felt a sensation unlike anything he had ever experienced, a resonance, a connection, as if the lattice itself was reaching into his mind, speaking without words. Humans' special capacity for empathy, for courage, for understanding. Ethan's heart raced. The lattice recognized something in humanity that other beings might overlook. Not their technology, not their strength, but their willingness to act, to take risks, to connect. Lyra had sensed it in him, and now the lattice itself acknowledged it. A holographic projection emerged from the core, shimmering into view. A figure, humanoid in shape, but composed entirely of energy, stood before them. Its voice resonated in Ethan's mind directly. You have endured what few could. You have merged, cooperated, understood. Humans are capable of what no other species has achieved. And yet, the universe is vast. Tests are not finished. Ethan felt a mixture of awe and fear. Tests? What do you mean? The entity, if it could be called that, glowed brighter. Not all forces are hostile. Not all challenges are meant to destroy. Some test potential. Some prepare for the unforeseen. You have shown that humanity can act with courage, with connection, that you are capable of survival beyond your own reckoning. Lyra floated beside him, her glow warm and steady. Humans special, you see now why I trusted, why I merged. Ethan's chest tightened. He looked at her, realizing the depth of her trust. She had risked everything, merged with him and the ship, to survive and prove a point. And through that act, humanity had earned recognition from a force beyond comprehension. Lessons learned continue. You are ready. But remember, courage, empathy, connection define you, not weapons, not technology, but heart and will. The resonance faded slowly, leaving Ethan and Lyra in a tranquil, almost sacred silence. The Odyssey floated gently within the chamber, systems humming softly, as if in agreement with the truth they had just been shown. Ethan exhaled deeply. So, this is what it means to be human, he said softly. Not to dominate, not to conquer, but to endure, to connect, to rise even when everything else seems impossible. Lyra's glow dimmed into a calm, comforting blue. Yes, humans special, remember, always. As they prepared to leave the structure, Ethan realized the scope of what had just occurred. Humanity had been recognized, not for what they built or conquered, but for what they could become. The HFY truth was undeniable. Courage, empathy, and the will to persevere were what set humans apart in a universe full of unimaginable forces. The Odyssey navigated back into open space, the lattice dissolving behind them, leaving only the vast, twinkling expanse of the cosmos. The shadow entity did not return. Perhaps it understood, perhaps it waited. But Ethan no longer feared it. Humanity had shown it, and the universe, that they were capable of standing among the stars, not as prey, but as participants. Ethan turned to Lyra, gratitude and respect shining in his eyes. I don't know what comes next, he admitted. But I do know this, we can face it. Together. She responded with a soft trill, her glow pulsing warmly, almost like a heartbeat. Together, always humans worthy. As they set course for the next unknown horizon, Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. Humanity had a place in the cosmos, not because of weapons, not because of wealth, not because of dominance, but because they could act with courage, empathy, and connection in a universe that often seemed indifferent or even hostile. And for the first time, he understood something profound. The human spirit was not limited to Earth. It was boundless, resilient, and special. And as long as humans retained that spark, heart, will, and determination, they could face anything the universe threw at them. Ethan looked at the stars, each one a distant sun, each one potentially harboring unknown civilizations, threats, and allies. And he smiled, not with arrogance, but with the quiet confidence of someone who had glimpsed the truth. Humans were special. They were capable. And their story, his story, was only just beginning. Lyra floated beside him, her glow steady and comforting. And together, human and alien, they sailed into the endless cosmos, ready for whatever came next. Because humanity had proven that, no matter how vast the universe, courage, empathy, and the will to connect were forces no being, no entity could ignore.